All right, let's pay attention to this loss here. Here's how it ended. I'll zoom into that. He had checkmate here from a6 to a8. I tried to attack and make an aggressive move, but I didn't really see what was coming, to be honest. So let's work through it and see how we can improve. So, of course, I was open with the sides, and he didn't take advantage of me open with the sides because I was able to put my pawn in d5 anyway. So he opened up with that pawn. I don't really understand that move, but I guess I will if I keep analyzing it. So because he left that d5 open, I went to it, and we traded pawns, and I was able to free my queen up, get her in open space. So he moved out his pawn to d4, and my next move was to move my bishop out. Like what I talked about in the last video, I like to move my bishop out before I move that pawn on e7 up to e6. So I moved it out, and then he now is protecting his knight and his castle by putting that bishop on e2, so he can now move his knight, and my bishop on g4 will be exposed. So what I like to do also is I like to take knights. I don't really like the knights in the game, so I just took his knight out. This kind of messed me up because, as you can see on b7, that pawn is weak and my queen is protecting it. But if he moves like he does here, his bishop onto f3, I have to move my queen because I can't take his bishop because he has a queen protecting it and another pawn protecting it. So I still need to protect that pawn, so I had to move my queen over to b5. So his next move is to now attack my queen. I can't really say I understand why he would do that, but he's just trying to get my queen to move into, or maybe make me make a mistake. So I move my queen back, still protecting that pawn on b7, and I move my queen back to b6. So from there he castles, and I don't know why, but I like to castle opposite of the other person. So that's just how I like to do it. So now I know which side I'm gonna castle. So I move my knight out, and he moves his bishop there to block my castle. And so I have to maneuver around a little bit. I have to put my knight to f6 to protect that d5 square because I want to move my pawn on e7 up to e6. But if I would have moved my pawn up to e6 without putting my knight there, he would have been able to move his pawn on d4 up to d5. And then if I castled, my king would have been in check if my pawn moved because his bishop is on h3. So I knew I had to protect that square on d5 before I could put my pawn up. So that's what I did. He actually didn't move his pawn up, but so he moved his knight out, and I wanted him to just mess up that side a little bit, so I took his knight and made the pawns uneven. So here I moved my queen up because I'm trying to get him in a better space, and he moves the bishop to a better position. I don't really know what he was trying to do here, but yeah, I think he's just moving pieces out. So I castle because I like to castle on that side. And so yeah, I think this is where the issue started. He moves that, and I guess I caused that problem. I guess he wanted me to do that. I guess he wanted me to open up the alley because now his rook is facing straight down on my castle, and that pawn on b7 is not really much of a protector if my king is under it. And that's what I do. I move my king under it after I move my queen away from the rook, and he opens up that space. I move my king under it, so I guess it's kind of hurting me by putting it there because he'll put his why he opened up that space is he wants to now attack that knight on c6 and that pawn on b7. So that's why he opened up that space right in front of his king, so he could put the bishop there. And now I have to move my queen. And now after I moved my queen, I realized what he was trying to do. Or maybe, I think maybe before I knew, but like there wasn't anything I could really do. So I think I was setting up my other move trying to attack because I knew what was happening and I knew I was going to lose some pieces. So I tried to set up my move to where I would put my knight on g4 and then move my queen over to h5 and then try and checkmate him by going down to h2. But he blocked that by moving his pawn up to h4. So, yeah, this isn't the best situation. And, of course, when he moves his queen up here, now this is like a really bad position because my pawn on b7 can't take his queen if he goes to a6 because the rook on b1 is protecting my king. So you're right here. I knew I was in trouble, and there wasn't anything I could really do. I guess I can move the pawn up to b5, but then he's gonna take my knight on c6. So I just try to get aggressive here and move my. I guess I could have moved my queen to. No, that wouldn't have worked. It's just that's a move behind. So I move my knight to g4, and I see he takes my knight, and I'm like, I can't do anything about that because his rook is covering my pawn and king. So I just try to get a little aggressive. I move my queen over and try and get the checkmate on h2, but he blocks that, or he takes that pawn, and now he's in a really good position. And I guess I could move to the right, but then he could just move his rook, and then that would put me in check again, and he'd just be taking pieces, and I'd be in trouble. But so I moved to the left, and I guess maybe instead of trying to attack right here, I should have. Oh, but yeah, he blocks it. So yeah, not here now. I know I'm in trouble, and I'm just trying to like look around what I could do. And I'm just still trying to attack. I guess I could have saved losing the game if I would have like moved up my. If I would have moved up my rook onto d6, that probably could have saved the game. But that's not what I did. I tried to force that checkmate that I was trying to get, and then this just ended it. There was nothing I could really do after he made this move and get the loss. So I guess lesson learned is don't try and force a checkmate. Try and, protect yourself. And don't really know what else. Just try to have less weak pawns, and I guess don't open up the alley. Don't open up the alley where I'm going to castle. Open up the alley opposite of where I'm going to castle.